Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on functions in Python. Let us understand how we define functions, how we reuse these functions, what are actually the functions is. So whenever we talk about function, what are functions? Function is a block of organized reusable code. So like suppose I am taking a function of or a module of login, right? I'm taking a module of login. So you might be seeing this login module in Yahoo, Gmail. So this module, login module can be reused, can be basically integrated with any of the application, right? So what we basically usually do is we make a single function that can be reused, right? That can be meant for performing a specific task, right? So rather than testing it again and again, it is going to be work like this, like you have written a code and now you integrate with other modules and you can run that code. So you can basically reuse this code, right? So let us understand what do you mean by this, how it works. A function is a block of organized reusable code that is used to perform a single related action. Right. Functions provide better modularity for your application and a high degree of code reusing. So I told you whenever we have a problem data set, like we have problem statement, is it is a big problem that is decomposed into number of submodules. So what we do is we take one submodule, we take second submodule and third submodule and so on. So we have a big module that is decomposed into smaller submodules, right? So over here what we can do is we use the concept of modularity. Modularity means main module that is decomposed into number of modules, right? So here and then further you may refine it to other levels, right? And so on, right? Until your task becomes easier and a single module can be fetched out, right? So that's why we call it as a function is a block of organized reusable code. The main thing is reusable code that is used to perform a single related action. So you are performing any action over here. Like I am talking about sign up or sign in module. You may take any one of this, right? As you already know, Python gives us many built-in functions like print function. You might be having your different number of multiple functions. You have math library, you have numpy library, you may call random function, rand function. You may use any of the function, but you can also create your own function. So here we are talking about like how we define the user defined function. So when we talk about functions, functions are basically divided into two categories. One is system defined functions, another one is user defined functions, right? So let us see how we define a function. Here, there are simple rules to define a function in Python. Function blocks begin with the keyword def. So we have a def means definition, right? So function definition begin with the keyword that is def. Like suppose you have and followed by the function name and parenthesis. So suppose you have a def and then you put any name, like I'm putting add, and then we write it like this, right? Any input parameter or argument should be placed within these parameters. So here you can put any parameters or arguments. You can define parameters inside these parentheses. The first statement of a function can be optional statement, the documentation string of the function, or doc string. The code block within every function starts with colon. So over here you have the colon and is indented the statement, and then you write down the statements over here, the logic behind the function. The statement return exits a function, optionally passing back an expression to the caller. A return statement with no arguments is same as the return null. So over here, like let me tell you how we define it. Def, we have the function name and then we have the parameters, right? And then you put colon over here. Okay, and then you write the number of statements. Okay, let's suppose we have a syntax def, function name and parameters, and then we put colon over here. Then we put function docstring, or you may say whatever your function is doing. Now let me take one example. By default, the parameters have an positional behavior and you need to inform them in the same order that they were defined. Like suppose I am taking def print me, and I'm putting one argument over here, that is a string, and then colon, and then you put a statement over here, that is this prints a parse string function, and then you print that particular string and then you return. Right, so here what you have done, you have defined the function. Let me call this function. How to call this function? Define print me, and then you put string, and this would be my function. Print this and return it, and then print me. Yeah, print me and send some argument over here. Right, this is calling of the function. Right, you are sending an argument, that is string, then you are receiving that argument over here, a string, and then you are printing over it. And it is not print statement, it is print function. Right, because I have defined the print me function like this: print me and then open parenthesis and closing parenthesis. Right, so print me, whatever string you want to send, you may send it as an argument, and then over here you may print it, print str, and then return it. Right, so here what you have done, print me, and then here you have sent the argument as well. This would produce the following argument. So these strings would be printed because you have sent two arguments. One argument in the first statement you have sent this, and the second argument you have sent this one. Right, now let us take another example. Pass by value, pass by value and pass by reference. So let us understand what is pass by reference and pass by value. All parameters or arguments in the Python language are passed by reference. It means if you change what are parameters refers to within a function, the change also reflects back in the calling of the function. So here what we have done, we have defined one function, that is change me, and over here you have sent one argument, and the argument you have expanded like this colon, and you put this would be my string, and my string, that is your function that you have sent an argument dot append. Now what you are doing is you are sending one, you are using append function, and you are sending the number of list of items. So here you are calling, again you are printing the values by sending the my list over here, and in my list you have already defined, that is 10, 20, 30, whatever you have done, and now you are change me and sending the my list. Now you are updating it. Now it is going to print the values like this, print values outside the function. Right, so basically it is what it is, this would be one scope, and once your definition part is over, you are calling your function. So this would be my calling of the function. How it like different, how you are going to differentiate it, basically you are going to differentiate it here. This is my function, and indentation part I have written over here, and the next line which has no indentation, that means this would be my next line in the program. Right, over here again you have change me, that would be another part. Right, I'm going to put I'm going to call this function, this is my change me, and this would be my argument. Right, and then I am going to print some statements over here. So your result would be like this: values inside the function, that is here, values outside the function, that is here. So this is like, because what you have done, you have appended these values inside the function, and once you move to the outside part, there is no indentation, this is my outside part. Right, and here what we have list of items. Right, we have list of items, and then we are going to print those items. Okay, so let us move to the next part. There is one more example where argument is being passed by reference and but inside the function, but the reference is being overwritten. Now let us see in how does it work. You have definition, you have function change me, and then you put the my list, and this changes a pass list. So here you have the list, and 1 2 3 4 5 you print those values inside the function, right, and return it. And then again you change the values and call the change me function my list, and then you print the values that is outside. So this is how it works. The parameter my list is local to the function change me. So here this is my parameter that is inside the function, and this is my parameter that is outside the function. Changing my list within the function does not affect the my list. The function accomplishes nothing, and finally this would produce the following result. And what is the following result? Values inside the function and values outside the function. Now let us see how it works here. Function, what are function arguments? Whatever you send it in the parameter list, that would be a function argument. A function by using the following types of formal arguments. It could be required arguments, keyword arguments, default arguments, variable length arguments. So there are the number of types of formal arguments. So here first we have required arguments. Required arguments are the requirement passed to a function in correct positional order. Define print me string. So you are sending this particular part as an argument. Then you print the string and then you return it. So over here you are putting it here, and then you just print it. Then you just call the function. So here it is going to give you an error. Why it is going to give you an error? Because you are not passing an argument to it. So over here we have passed the argument and we have sent the argument as well. Whereas in this part this would produce the result. Track traceback, because this file print me exactly one argument, right? So here there would be no argument over here. Now let us talk about keyword arguments. Keyword arguments are related to the function calls. When you use keyword arguments in a function call, the caller identifies the arguments by the parameter name. This allows you to skip arguments or to place them out of order, because a Python interpreter is able to use keywords provided to match the values with parameters. So over here what we are going to do is, this is my definition, this is my print me function, and this is my parameter. And then you print it and then you return it. And then whatever you are going to take it as an argument, you may take it. This is going to print on the screen. The following example gives you more clear picture. Note here, order of the parameter does not matter. So it might be possible you are sending two arguments and you are printing those values and then return it. And then it does not matter, like you have taken name as the first argument and age as the second, and here over here you have taken it age and name, but you can take the variable name, right? The result will be produced. Then we have default arguments. Now what are default arguments? A default argument is an argument that assumes a default value if a value is not provided in the function call for that argument. For example, gives an idea. On default argument, it would print default age if it is not passed. So you have definition and then you have the function name, and over here you have send the two arguments, and then you print these value and return it. And over here you have called the function and you have sent two values to argument as a, right? Here we can have this would produce the result. This result would be produced. Then let us take another type of argument, that is variable length arguments. You may need to process a function for more arguments than you specified while defining the function. These arguments are called variable length arguments and are not named in the function definition, unlike required and default arguments. For what is the syntax for that? You have definition, you have the function name, and these are my formal arguments, right? And this would be called variable length arguments. You have the pointer variable. So here you are going to put the function suit and then to return the expression. So here asterisk, what is asterisk? Asterisk is placed before the variable which will hold the values of all the non-keyword variable arguments. This tuple remains empty if no additional arguments are specified during the function call. For example, definition, print info, you have one argument and another variable like this. So now this is test and this is going to like you are putting output is and then print argument 1 arg1 whatever you have received it here, and then you have taken a for loop where in tuple var tuple print the value of var, and then you send the value as an argument, you pass the value as an argument. It would be like this, right? Then we have anonymous functions. You can use the lambda keyword to create small anonymous functions. These functions are called anonymous because they are not declared in the standard manner by using def keyword. Lambda forms can take any number of arguments but return just one value in the form of an expression. They cannot contain commands or multiple expressions. An anonymous basically when you use anonymous function is used which is not which cannot be directly called. So anonymous function should be like cannot be called directly to print because lambda requires an expression. So anonymous function is actually when it is called when you have an lambda. Lambda functions have their own local namespace, cannot access variables other than those in their parameter, right, list and those in the global namespace. So although it appears that lambda are a one-line version of a function, they are not equivalent to inline statements in C++, whose purpose is by passing the function stack allocating during invocation for performance reason. So you have lambda arguments you have passed and then you put the expression over here. Let me take one example. So for example, sum lambda and you put the arguments over here and you put the variable addition part also. So here we have sent print value sum of what your these two arguments. So it is going to put here. Then again you have changed it and then these two values will be displayed on the screen. Then you have scope of variables. Or variables in a program may not be accessible at all locations in that program. This depends on where you have declared a variable. The scope of a variable determines the portion of the program where you can access a particular identifier. There are two basic scopes of variables in Python, global and local. So let us understand one by one. When you talk about global, variables that are defined inside the function body have local scope, and those defined outside the body of the function, that is called global scope, right? This means that local variables can be accessed only inside the function in which they are declared, whereas global variables can be accessed throughout the program body by all the functions. When you call a function, the variables declared inside it are brought into scope. So basically what we do is, like over here, if we have any function, let me take one function. So if it is defined within the function, that is local variable, and if it is defined outside the function over here, somewhere here, it would be global variable, where I can use this variable anywhere in the program throughout the program. And local is only defined and used within that particular function. It is not going to be used outside the function. It is going to be used within that particular function, right? So these are the differences between like how we used local and global. So global variables are those variables which can be used throughout the program. Local variables are those variables which are used only within the function where it is defined. It is defined like suppose in the body of some function. Like suppose you have taken this particular part, right? Over here you have taken some variable, and you have used some variables and you have defined and printed, right? And outside this, if you have defined any variable, that would be like you have variables but they are global variables, right? And if you are using here, that would be my local variable, right? So the difference is its scope is local. Local means it is only known within the scope. Outside the scope, it is not recognized, right? Whereas when we talk about global variables, it is recognized throughout the program. You need not have to worry like how to go about it, how it is going to be accessed. So it is going to be accessed throughout the program. Now let us take one example. You have, this is my global variable. It is not defined any scope. So this is my global variable. Now I have defined one function sum. I have passed two arguments. I have taken one statement, add both parameters. So we have taken the parameters, add one. We have printed it as well, right? And return total. Now here you can see outside the global is total. So here it is outside the function, that is global total, right? So here you may say like whenever it is outside the function, it would be a global variable. Inside the local total is here, right? And where you have defined the global total, that is outside the function. So here you have defined outside the global total. So this would be defined outside the function, that is 0, total 0. This would be, if you print this value, it would be giving you 0 because this is a global variable. It is used outside the function. The same value, the same variable is used inside the function as well. Need not have to define it again. Its scope is local to this program, not affect the outer variable. And the outer variable, if you are going to call it, you may call it, but its scope is, yes, its scope is very much there and it can be used throughout the program. But here what we can say that if you are using the variable inside the function, its scope is local. And if you have defined it here, its scope is global, right? So hope you have understood like how functions are defined, how we use functions, and what are the different types of arguments we have, like function arguments. We have number of types of arguments, and how we define functions, and what are the basically usage of these functions. So functions are widely used, and yes, you may say it is a reusable code which can be used again and again, right? So hope you have understood this session and hope you like the session. Thank you.